Cabo Verde. E nessa linda América, em criar com tudo coisa de bom no meu coração. Em criar com desejo, para um diabo dia, para chegar na boa, dia, Cabo Verde.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for Cape Verdean Conversations on behalf of the Cape Cod Cape Verdean Museum and Cultural Center. Hopefully, this will be one of the first of monthly conversations we will have with the members of the community, whether they are Cape Verdean or not. Most folks know of us, know a family member who might be Cape Verdean, or something to do with the community that really impacts us importantly and impressively. My name is Barbara Burgo. I am the co-founder, curator, and clerk of the Cape Cod Cape Verdean Museum and Cultural Center, which is now located at the Emerald House on 67 Davisville Road in East Falmouth. Please visit us. We're open from Thursday to Saturday from 10 to 2. Happy Women's History Month. And in honor of that, I have a dear new friend that I have made that I met through many email and Facebook and other venues. But I attended one of her conversations that she has at her own space. Her name is Ayanna Parrent. And when I went to her space, we'll talk about that in a minute, I realized the one thing I didn't know about her, one of the many things I didn't know about Ayanna, is that she's also an author. Something I aspire to be someday. So she's my role model for this. Ayanna, welcome and thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I really appreciate it.
We are thrilled to have you, Ayanna. It is important that I get this right, I told her. She has so many titles and so many lives, and she's so impressive that I would never get this all right unless I read it from the back of her book. So yes, this is a plug for you to purchase her book, but at least I'm going to give you a hint as to what it's all about. The title is Becoming Free. Ayanna Parrent is many things: mother, daughter, sister, wife, pound pro life coach, recovering alcoholic, survivor. Born into a family dynamic struggling to find its foundation, Ayanna resolved not to become like her own mother, an addict who walked a fine line between fierce inspiration and neglectful parent, until the moment she realized that that was exactly who she'd become. But despite Ayanna's own traumatic past, there was within her a spark of hope that finally ignited when a breakthrough occurred during her second time in rehab. That spark helped Ayanna to conceive of and create a business model that is destined to change the face of recovery. Thank you, Ayanna.
You're welcome.
I mentioned to you when we first met in person that I did have a brother who was ill for many, many years. In the 70s and 80s, alcohol and drugs, and we lost him in 1994. It changed my life. It inspired me like I'm thinking it inspired Ayanna, And for me, the Cape Verdean Museum and Cultural Center is one of the offsprings of our recovery, our healing, our need to give back to the community we came from and got so much from. Ayanna, tell us about some of the other things you do before we get deeply into this book, because I told you before we started, you have so many titles and so many things you do. I can't even keep up with it.
You're so sweet. Well, the back of the book describes it well. So I kind of define myself as a grateful person in recovery, and that kind of fuels everything that I do. So I'm the owner and founder of Be Free Wellness, Inc. And so that's my main title. And that's a nonprofit. We're moving from Harwich to Hyannis. I don't know if you knew that, but to a much bigger space and just more accessible to the community. And our mission really is to help and make wellness and mental health services accessible to all of those who are dealing with trauma, addiction, and oppression. And so we do a lot with the BIPOC community, a lot around racial trauma, a lot for communities that are marginalized, to really help access wellness and mental health. Because I feel like that is such an important issue that our community doesn't really focus on in terms of race and racism and how all those things play out institutionally. It almost blocks access for people of color, and so I founded the organization to really help. Because for me, as you read in the back of the book, recovery of all types, right? We're all recovering from something. Mine happened to be alcohol, but for other people it could be anything. But it really is just about recovery in all ways of health and mental health, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a coin at home that I missed it. There was a death in one of my daughter's boyfriend's family. My brother that I lost had been in Naranon, and he had his 5-year coin. I treasure that.
Yeah.
I should have been there with him that day, and I'll never forgive myself for that because we lost him.
Yeah.
How long have you been in recovery? Or tell me how you say it, because some people say, of course, you'll be an addict or an alcoholic your whole life, but you are recovering, or tell me how you word that.
That's a great question, because lots of people ask me that all the time, like, how do you identify? And there's like different schools of thought on that now. Because the word like alcoholic like makes me feel like I'm sick or I'm ill, and I feel like I'm actually have so much energy all the time.
You do, you're beautiful.
And a lot of that has to do with being in recovery. And so I feel, when I was active, I certainly was not healthy and not a healthy person in the world, but now I am. So I just sort of identify as a person in recovery from lots of stuff. So it's not actually just alcohol, it's trauma too, which is sort of the gateway to addiction, as we talk about in Be Free. Like, that's why we have all the movement and holistic ways of healing the body, is because it really stays stuck in your tissues, and your emotional state really is stuck in your body. And so for me, it's been 5 years. So yeah, I just celebrated about 4 months ago, I don't even know. So yeah, 5 years, and it's great. And for just a plug for anyone out there, recovery is possible. So.
Oh, see, so now you've helped me as well. So now that I can take that coin for 5 years, and I can say it's not only his 5 years was, and we lost him, it's Ayanna's 5 years, and now she's going to keep on growing.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much for that. You're helping me.
Of course.
Right here.
Yeah.
What was the trigger? What was the last point? Yeah, what do they say? Your bottom.
Yeah. So, alcoholism is a funny thing. It really takes a hold of you earlier than you know, and then earlier than you want to know. And so
nicely put. Nicely put.
So if I look back, like, obviously I knew that I had an issue for a really long time, but it takes a while to be able to look at it and really confront it, right? Because it's very scary. In the book, I talk about there's a moment where I realized, like, alcohol has become my best friend, and so in order to really let that go, I would have to sort of, say goodbye to my best friend, and that was like super hard. So there was that connection there. But we adopted my daughter through the Department of Children and Families, and so we had to foster her first. And really, that was my inspiration for for needing to shift and change. There was a moment where she grabbed my hand, and the memories of like, my mother is also an addict, and so my memories of like when my mom was little and grabbed my hand, and all of a sudden all these memories and flashbacks came back, and I was like, oh my God, like I want to be able to hold this little hand forever, you know, when it gets big. And if I keep going down this path of being destructive to myself and not loving myself, then this little person won't have me. And so it was that moment that I was like, I gotta really take care of myself. So I did go to rehab twice, and you know, lots of people are afraid to talk about that. I'm not.
That's why I love you so much.
I'm always like, do it. It's the greatest thing. It seems silly, but
it isn't silly.
You have time for yourself for the first time ever, and you can really look inside and really just challenge yourself on the stuff that got you to a place that was hard. We've all had difficult times.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, whether, you know, depending on what it is, but we've all had difficult times.
So two things.
Yeah.
Yes, we've all had, so many people right now, of course, this, I don't want to say post-pandemic era, because we're still kind of in it. We want everyone to be careful, be cautious. We've hidden our masks, but we've had them on in here. At Falmouth Cable TV has been very, very good. We make sure we're protected in all ways possible. For people of color, okay, so we're talking about recovery, and I said a lot of people, if they find that so heavy, when you've lived it, it's not heavy, you're right, at all. You know, when I've lost a brother to it, it is uplifting to meet somebody like you who we can really converse, commiserate, however you want to call it. Find ways forward, okay? In the pandemic, they say, of course, it is harder for people of color. I knew this was the truth a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now. We partnered with Dee Dee's Cry from Boston.
I know her very well.
And a Zoom, we had a conference, because I went to Boston about February 2 years ago when they had Mental Health While Black. And I said, now there's someone who gets me.
Yes, yes.
Not everybody gets me, but there's someone, and you're someone who gets me. Do you find, so let's say how you self-identify. I asked permission if she could say how she self-identifies culturally. Yeah,
so I'm biracial, and my dad's side of the family, he's white, but Portuguese and French, and then my mom is African American.
See, so kind of like a Cape Verdean.
Yeah.
It all
intersects. The Portuguese are right there.
She looks like my sister.
It all intersects.
Is it more difficult?
For people of color in the pandemic, you mean?
Do you think, yes?
Oh, absolutely. That has related specifically to, I'd say, institutional racism for sure, and access to healthcare and comfortability around healthcare, but also trauma.
Yes.
So if you are someone who's had, you know, racial trauma your whole life, and then you have the pandemic on top of it, that is very extreme. And people had, I think, a hard time understanding the difference. I did a lot of research right before, that's partly why I opened Be Free as well, around the statistics of people of color and how it was affecting them in the pandemic. And they were the most largely affected, as you said. The rates of overdose and death for Black men tripled within that year, tripled. And when I heard that stat, I was like, that we're losing humans, and that's not okay. And the reason for that, obviously, is because there was so much trauma on top of trauma. Black men feel it a lot. Obviously, Black women do as well. But as far as what their experience was, you know, the ones that couldn't find recovery in those moments resorted to alcohol, drugs, and then the result was death.
Yes.
And
are they bad people?
Of course not. Oh my God.
You know that's a rhetorical question. My brother was the best person on
beautiful people, I know.
You're a beautiful person. They're not bad people. This is not a bad conversation. It's not a downer. We're not Debbie Downers. I don't even like that. This is reality. This is life. And hopefully, not death. This is about becoming free.
Right, exactly.
Would you do us a favor and read a
of course.
paragraph?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So please remind me the name. I wrote it down.
Yeah.
Brave.
Oh, this was from our Brave Space Conversations, the one that you came to on a Friday night. We do once a month conversations that celebrate social justice. So this was that part of that conversation.
So I decided to pop in and see who this young lady is that was just like me. And she read this, and I couldn't contain myself. It was so profound, so important, and so generous of you to share this. Please do, Ayanna.
Thank you. So this chapter is called Breathe, chapter 33. In the many minutes that have passed since George Floyd was killed, we've seen the signs on the television, social media, and even in our neighborhood protests. I can't breathe. But what do they really mean? For Floyd, it meant a last plea for help, as the breath of his life was snuffed out. For protesters, it is yet another plea for law enforcement to please check their racism at the door and be aware of the potential outcome of their actions. It all comes back to breath. Breath is everything. It is what tells the world we're alive when we first burst into it from our mother's womb. It is how we steady ourselves in times of unrest. Everything starts with breath. Life, healing, making important decisions, taking a step towards a better life. It all begins with breath, until someone tries to stop it. I was at a protest in the town of Orleans last spring in which hundreds of those attempted to kneel for 8 minutes that George Floyd was under the knee of the police officer that ultimately murdered him. I consider myself fit and athletic, and kneeling for that long was even a struggle for me. I was painfully uncomfortable for many reasons. It was astounding to me how difficult it was to simply kneel on the grass, damp, with pebbles in every place. It hurt. And I wasn't anywhere near the level of violence it took to kneel on a man's neck as he struggled to breathe. George's face kept flashing through my mind, along with that of his daughter. His voice, filled and fading, echoed in my ears as he cried out for his mom. Nearby, I saw an older man, about 70, struggling with the gesture. He really wanted to kneel for George and for all of us. And he tried his darndest. Ultimately, he fell to the ground and burst into tears, his hands out, his knees on the ground. I put my hand gently on his back as he cried, and suddenly sensed a current running through the crowd of many races, collective suffering. Earlier that week, I'd done a Facebook Live, event with one of my favorite yogis, Michelle Johnson, who's the author of Skill in Action. She had spoken about collective suffering and said, to bridge the gap between white people and black people and people of color, in order to begin eradicating racism, we need to tap into collective suffering together in order to understand how truly to move forward. How do we do this? With breath.
It takes my breath away. Literally. Hearing
I cry
it again.
every time when I read when he cries out for his mom. Oh my God.
We need
just
it.
breathe. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Your organizations, you've done so many, you have so many going. Did you begin this before how long have you been in this? Before George Floyd passed?
Oh yeah, I started this 5 years ago actually, right when I got sober.
So there's a great segue.
I came out of rehab and said I have to start this for everyone. They need to understand that movement and breath and social justice and trauma and addiction all are so tied together, but so is collective healing. And that movement and enjoying other people and being in the same space of mixed races, mixed cultures, of people that are struggling to heal, but also people that are really healed. There needs to be that community. Like, we have to have it all together in one in order to really have a space of healing.
So this is a wonderful community. So you're moving from Harwich, which is a smaller space, space on Cape Cod,
Yep.
and into kind
much-
of the bigger new metropolitan
Going downtown Hyannis.
area, downtown Hyannis. No offense meant.
Oh my God.
So how has your business grown?
Yeah, so what's incredible is to watch, like, when you have an idea, and it becomes, when I started, it was just me in an office, and I was running around coaching people and helping them, and then teaching pound here, teaching yoga over there. And to watch this really blossom has just been incredible. And so be able to almost triple our size, or double our size for sure, in Hyannis is incredible. The dream for Be Free was always a full wellness center, and so in Harwich we kind of have that. We have one office in one little space, but now we're building a treatment center and offices, and it'll be a full wellness center.
Oh, I couldn't be happier. Not only for you and your organization, but for the world. The world needs more Ayanna Parents.
Yeah.
Okay? What do you hope from here? What do you hope this to be if you had a 5-year plan? Would it be just, have you reached
Oh,
your
wow.
ultimate?
No, we'd help more people and make a larger wellness center. And can I put a plug to,
Please
if
do.
people would like to support our organization, they can go to BeFreeWell.com. We need a lot of donations in order to expand the services that we have, and to be able to really support the programs and to be able to sustain it.
But folks need to know more about you and that your program exists.
Yeah.
People say to me all the time, because they know my history, though, they come to the Cape Verdean Museum and Cultural Center and say, I had a problem, or I have a problem,
yeah.
or sometimes just showing them a piece of, I don't know, the history. Nana's kitchen that we have there, they sit and they say, I miss my Nana. She was my rock. And then sometimes they start crying too right there, because it is emotional, the intergenerational. We know. So my BA is in cultural anthropology. I have a minor in women's studies. I started a master's in gerontology when I was moving down here, because I thought aging process is another kind of traumatic event for some.
Sure.
In the realistic way, I'm thinking is that we now have to grapple with the fact that maybe the body doesn't work so well. The children have left home, so empty nesters kind of a long time ago, but sometimes the loss of another spouse. I also had to come to grips with the fact that men generally have a more difficult time in their older years than women. They're taught not to be quite as social like this, okay? They're taught to be strong and powerful. And I always want to help the men in all of our communities, not just the BIPOC, learn to reach out for help. Learn to reach for someone. Find someone that they feel comfortable with. Anything, any kind of helpful hints you can give us to encourage people to get help, or just tell us what your website is. Well, you just mentioned the website, but how do they get in touch with you if folks are viewing this and say, this is my son, or this is my daughter, or this is my wife or husband or my grandfather?
Right. So it's BeFreeWell.com. You can also Google me, and like a million things come up. The only reason I know that is because I did that myself the other day. I had to write a bio for something. So there's a lot of interesting facts that come up. But yeah, you can also go on Amazon and get the book, and that will pop up. AyannaParrent.com is also my private website that I use. I do a lot of DEI consulting, so diversity, equity, inclusivity. But I do it through a movement lens and meditation lens, so that all of it is really around movement and breath work. It's intertwined into the issues, and that's how we talk about them. So It's sort of a specialty that I have, sort of a niche that I do consultations around that for companies and organizations. So people can find me there at ayannaparrent.com, and it talks all about how I do that work. But also for people in recovery, I get a lot of calls from parents that are wanting help for their sons, daughters, or whoever. And I think one of the most important things for people dealing with trauma or any of those things is to ask for help, no matter how hard. And that it's okay, and that we all are recovering. Everybody is, it just is part of it. And that no one's alone. No one is alone. Even though in those moments it really feels like it, people should know that there's a community like Be Free Wellness. And even though we're based on the Cape, we have reach out to Boston. We collaborate all over the place. I talk to people all the time, and people can reach me even just to check in to say, like, what would you suggest, or talk to parents, because a lot of what's missing in the recovery world too is the holistic approach. So people can go to a meeting, or they can read a book, or they can go to a therapist, or this goes for anybody. But unless we have the holistic approach in healing, we're really not giving it the full picture of the mind, body, spirit connection. And that's where people really thrive to be successful in the world.
Excellent. Yeah. So within your new space, tell us what kinds of things will happen. I hear you say holistic approach. For those who don't get it, I heard you say mind, body, spirit. So just give us a sample of. Yeah,
so like any given day, if you walk into the studio, it's going to be really exciting. I know, I'm like so excited. Start moving. So there's Zumba, so it's like Latin dance aerobics. There's yoga, but we do body positive yoga and accessible yoga, so that's also not always, like done for people. And so that will always be a part of us. We're starting actually a bilingual class, so it'll be taught in Spanish and English. And so that's never been done before, well, not on Cape Cod that I've seen, or many places. So that's coming in May. And so my friend Abby, who speaks Spanish, will be doing that with me, and I'm really excited for that. And then Pound, which is a rock out workout using drumsticks with the rhythm. And so there's all kinds of movement, but then there's also, we have rooms for where you can actually have clinical therapy, which people are more familiar with, but also the wellness coaches that I train to coach, who are trained Be Free Wellness coaches, to be able to help other people heal through all of these different avenues.
Excellent. So there's that one last piece. How has your staff grown? How much?
Oh my gosh, I went from like me to 2 to we have 18 almost. We'll have in Hyannis.
18? Yeah. I thought you were going to say 8.
Oh no, it might be more.
I bet people are just excited that you're coming.
Yeah.
I mean, you have been becoming.
Yes.
And I bet the folks just really know how much you are appreciated and needed.
Yeah.
And
I hope so.
A blessing
to
this world, to this nation. So where is it? Did we say
we are coming? So we'll be open in May. The grand opening will be Saturday, May 7th. You should come. Everyone is invited. And it's 326 Main Street.
326 Main Street.
Yep.
I just mentioned I'd lost my mom when I turned 50. She's not quite there yet.
Not yet.
May 7 would have been my mom's birthday, so I think
wow.
I'll spend Mom's birthday with you that day.
Yes, please do. Please do.
She would love it. She would have loved knowing you.
Oh.
My brothers, like I said, may have still been here if they had known you. The world is lucky to have you. Cape Cod is lucky to have Ayanna Parrent. If you haven't heard of her, I don't think there's too many people who haven't yet. But there is hope. This is Women's History Month again, like I said, and this is one woman who is here making history every single day. Ayanna, muito obrigada. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Cabo Verde. E nessa linda América, em criar com tudo coisa de bom na minha coração. Em criar com desejo, para um diabo dia, para chegar na boa, dia, Cabo Verde.